Welcome everyone to this session. My name is Mwaki Musila, and I am going to be taking you through the basics of property rights and what it means to have property rights. And yeah, we are going to look at property rights as the cornerstone of a well functioning society. And this is because, as you are going to see, they establish clear guidelines about who owns what and how they can use it. And this lesson is going to explore the various types of property rights that we have. We are also going to look at what property rights are and also look at their importance and how they tend to impact our daily life. So, thank you so much for joining us for this session. So, what are property rights? And property rights essentially tend to define ownership, and they grant individuals and entities the legal authority to own, use, enjoy, and dispose of property. And so, when we are talking about property rights, we are talking about both individuals, that is persons like you and myself, and we are also talking about entities, about businesses being able to own and lay claim on property. So, there are those two aspects about ownership, that is individuals being able to own property, and then there are those instances where certain properties is associated with ownership by entities. And property can encompass a wide range of things, from tangible assets, things like houses and cars, to intangible assets also, like property, like intellectual property and copyrights. And in this instance, I know we are most of us are familiar with the whole aspect of physical assets, like having a car, having a house, having a piece of land. And of late, we've been interacting a lot with intellectual property. Think of musicians, think of people who are creating software, products, and so on. So the ownership of having created that piece of software, it's what gives you the right, the legal entitlement to owning, to using, enjoying, and maybe being able to dispose that element of our property. So think about your favorite song or a movie. The creators of that particular soft, let's call it a soft copy piece of property, have the property rights over the works. And it allows them to be able to control how they are used, and potentially gaining a bit of a profit from them. So when we are talking about property rights, and being the cornerstone of a free market and a thriving society, it's all about, for me as an individual, being able to use what I own, what I have acquired, what I have spent my time and labor creating. Creating in the long run. So it's only fair, it's only right that I reserve the legal entitlement to be able to use that property, to enjoy it, to dispose it, to use it in whichever manner that I feel like, so long as it's within the law. And I want you to think about the importance of property in terms of, for example, being able to, for example, if I have a piece of, if I have a piece of land, property rights is all about myself as an individual being able, I can decide to grow whatever crop I want on that piece of land. I can decide maybe to rear some animals on that particular piece of land. I From that, I can be able to generate a bit of income, a bit of profits that I can be able to take care of my people, a bit of an extra savings and so on, that I can be able to pay school fees and invest in other in other ways to generate more income. So that is the essence. That is the importance of having property rights, and the reason why we are saying that they are the cornerstone of a thriving society, of a free market, is because when you think of a market, you go into a market, there are a lot of people who are selling different things. And this happens because if I am producing, for example, mangoes and or oranges and so on, I am able to claim ownership to that kind of property, and I am able to go into a market and agree with the buyer to exchange that property because I own it. Otherwise, if I did not own it, I'll have probably I'll be breaking law in selling what I do not have, or probably I need to get authorization from a number of people for me to be able to dispose of, or rather sell that a piece of property for me to be able to generate some income. So that is why as free markets advocates and thinkers, we advocate for the whole concept of having property rights, because it allows us to commit whatever resources we have into the creative process, into the value addition, rather adding process for us to be able to generate value, solve a lot of needs that we have in the market that people have, and then at the end of the day, we are able to get some income. We're able to get some income from committing such property. So what types of property rights do we have? And there are different categories of property rights, And number one, we have real property, which refers to things like land and anything affixed to it. Things like buildings and trees and so on. So that is real property that we have. So this is what essentially what we were talking about when we were talking about things like cars, house, the physical types of assets that we have. So that is what we classify as real property. Number two, we can think of property in terms of being personal, and personal property encompasses movable objects that an individual can own and control. So you might realize that personal property might fall within other categories, for example, intellectual property, real property, and intangible property. So personal property, or rather, and the ownership of personal property, it's all about these are things that they are not communal, they are not owned by the government, but for me as an individual, these are things that I've acquired through my labor and through my capital. These are things that I can lay claim to. For example, if I have acquired a piece of land and build a house, that is a personal property. It only belongs to me and for my use, and another person cannot be able to come into to use that piece of property without my authorization, or rather without a prior agreement with me as an individual. Another type of property rights that we might need to understand is intellectual property, and these covers elements of creations of the mind, and things like inventions, literary works, like poetry and songs and so on. We have designs, for example. In creative arts, for example, people who do drawings, people who do art, and so on, people who take pictures. All those are creations of the mind, and that is what we classify into. So that is what we classify in as intellectual property. So those are the creations of mind. Of late, we've had a lot of activity in terms of coding and people creating softwares, people getting into the creative industry, the generation and creation of content, the writing of books, art, drawings, and all that. So those are all those designs, which are essentially they tend to be intangible. Sometimes I can be both intangible and tangible property, but essentially they are the creations of the mind. Is what we call intellectual property. And finally, we have intangible property, which includes rights not directly linked to a physical object. For example, think of stock options, or the goodwill that is associated with business. So that is something with a monetary value for an individual. But you cannot be able to obtain it and put it in your pocket. Maybe whatever you might have could just be a piece of paper, just as a representation of the fact that you own rights to that particular of stock, kind of stock, or goodwill in business, and so on. So intangible property, just like the name suggests, is that kind of property, the kind of property that cannot. It's not physical. It's not physical in nature. So you realize that yeah, those sides of having the tangible and the intangible property, and then of course they can be classified into the real property. That they are the physical things, that assets that we can see, personal property that is owned, or rather an individual can lay claim or rights to, and then the intellectual property, which is the creation of the mind, and then of course we have talked about intangible property being anything that has you someone can have rights on, but is not directly linked to a physical object. Now, let's look at the importance of property rights. And number one, you realize that property rights, like I said in my introduction, play a crucial role in a healthy economy. And property rights tend to incentivize investment and innovation by assuring people that they will reap rewards of their hard work. So imagine someone writing a novel and strong, which creates some intellectual property rights. So you realize that strong intellectual property rights will protect their creation, encouraging them to invest time and effort in writing. So what we are talking about, property rights being able to incentivize investment and innovation, is when I'm attempting to create a piece of art. I'm trying to create a song, or rather, I'm trying to create a software that does A, B, C, D. I'm encouraged to invest my time and resources in creating that piece of an asset, whether intangible or not. I'm encouraged to create it because I know that I will be the one who is owning it. Nobody is going to take it away from and I know that I will be able to benefit from it, whether I'm selling it, whether I'm using it to generate more income and so on. And that this is why we say that strong property rights, or rather the strong protection of property rights, is important in any society, in any economy that is seeking to prosper, because entrepreneurs and business people that create that kind of a value within society can only be incentivized or encouraged to do that if they are sure that whatever assets they are going to put their labor, their capital into, it's going to benefit them directly. For example, if I'm acquiring a piece of land, in a certain area, chances are I'm only going to spend money on that piece of land because I know after I acquire it and I have the title deed, and so on, I can use that particular piece of land maybe to as my settlement area, or I can be able to sell it at a profit, or can be able um, to use it maybe for farming or any other value addition process. And the good thing is, if I am sure that I'll be able to keep the profits or the money that I generate from the ownership of that piece of property, then it encourages me more to be able to make that investment, to be able, if for example I'm creating a software, to be able to think outside the box, to be able to think outside of similar products that already exist, trying to innovate, trying to create something that is more competitive in the market, um, for me to be able to benefit more. So we realize that property rights tend to encourage people a lot to invest and to be more innovative, because the more competitive the asset that you own is, the more benefit in terms of profitability, in terms of prestige, and the like, you're likely to enjoy as an individual. Number two, property rights facilitate trade and commerce. And when ownership of an asset is clear, it's easier for people to buy, sell, and rent property with confidence. And we realize that, like I had explained before, if, for example, you go in a market where the exchange of whatever is being sold doesn't belong to the people who are selling, or rather, if there's a problem with the ownership, person A claims that property, person B claims the same property. You realize, for me as a buyer, chances are I'm not going to want to be involved in such an exchange, because there's nothing protecting me from losing whatever I have already acquired using my money today. And that's why we are saying that in an economic system, when we have very clear, um, well established and well protected property rights, where we know that if there is an issue, there's maybe a clear judicial system that can be followed to establish the ownership of these assets and so on. It becomes easier for people to engage in trade and commerce, because I know whatever I'm acquiring today, I'm going to own it fully, and I'm not going to have any issues tomorrow with other people. Think of a piece of land. If I'm in the market to acquire a piece of land, I'm more likely to acquire that piece of land if I know that the person who is selling it to me owns it. They probably have the rights to it, and they probably can claim that piece of land. And what it tells me is that once I acquire it, then it belongs to me. I'm not going to have other issues in terms of other people claiming to own also the property. And at that instance, it's clear to me that once I'm able to sell, to buy, to acquire that property, like we had said before in our introduction, I understand that with strong property rights, I get the legal entitlement to be able to own, to use, enjoy, and dispose that piece of property. And lastly, as I had said, um, it also tends to promote economic growth, because when we have strong property, or rather protection of property ownership, entrepreneurs and business people are more likely um, to commit their resources into creating more value, because we don't have those wrangles, and I know whatever value or whatever benefit, whether monetary or otherwise, I'm going to get from my resource, it's mine, and I'm going to be able to keep it. So that encourages a lot of investment and innovation, as we had said. It encourages a lot of trade and commerce and that kind of exchanges. And in the long run, with the creation of value, selling, the buying, and making of profits, and so on, a society with strong property rights ends up promoting economic growth um, in the long run. So let's have a real world example of property rights in action. So let's consider an example. For example, let's imagine a farmer who invests um, significant amount of time and resources in improving their land's facility or rather fertility. Maybe they're looking at adding a bit of manure, a bit of clearing, a bit of water, and so on. So, secure property rights guarantee that the farmer will be able to reap the benefits of their labor, such as probably from increased uh, crop yield. So, this incentivizes them to keep investing in their land and potentially leading to a more abundant harvest than benefit, that in the long run will benefit the entire community. So, using this example of a farmer, um, if a farmer, fully owns a piece of land, they are the only people who lay claim to that of piece of land. Number one is they get that freedom, to do with it whatever they want. And in our example, we are talking of a farmer who has decided to invest in improving the fertility of their land, maybe through irrigation and fertilization, maybe just like using manure and better, better farming techniques and so on. So, clear property rights in this instance will ensure that once this farmer adds that value to a piece of land, nobody else is going to lay claim over that over that particular piece of land. And this farmer is able to do all that, is able to take all those risks, is able to spend their labor, their time, and their resources, maybe in irrigation, and maybe adding manures, and so on, because they know that their hard work will be rewarded. For example, if this farmer decides to plant some maize on that particular piece of land, because they have added value to it, they are assured that the potential harvest from that piece of land is likely to be higher, and when that happens, maybe the profitability will go up. Number two, let's assume these are in this example that the farmer decides to dispose of, or rather to sell this piece of land. Of course, that is value addition, and when you add value to something and piece of land, the cost goes up, and this farmer is able rather to draw a bit more of income of gains from disposing that piece of land. So that is an illustration of why having strong property rights and systems, maybe things to do with the transparency within the government, accountability, independence within the judicial systems. That is that is why they should be strong, or rather why they should be important. Because when that happens, we are guaranteed, in as much as we are owning a piece of asset, if there are issue, we have a clear way, mechanism of establishing who the real owner is, and ironing out such issues that we have. And when, for example, you look at the economic freedom index of the world, some of the best performing economies, they tend to do that because the level of property rights that protection that I have is very good in terms of the government and people in authority not interfering with the judicial process that is critical in you know establishing the real owners of property. Such economies do well because these people they know that uh, any contracts that emerge from the exchange of property rights, there's a clear way of enforcing those contracts. And also, people understand that strong property rights will allow them to benefit from any gains that are generated from these property rights. Think of a foreign country that is coming to invest into your country. Now, if your country offers very strong property rights, you are likely to experience a case of increased foreign direct investment into your country. Why? Because these investors understand that once they come into your country, set up businesses, spend money, commit their intellectual property and time and labor and so on, they understand that the benefits that they are going to get, let's say that these benefits are in terms of profits, they will understand that they can be able to, or rather, the systems that are there are able to protect what they own. They are able to enforce any contracts that they might have got into within that trading period. And at the end of the day, they are guaranteed that because this is the profits, this is the wealth that they generated from investing in this particular company. When they are now going back home, they are able to again move with their gains, with their profits and so on, because these profits are generated from committing their resources, their time, their labor, and so on. So this underlines the importance of having clear property rights in place and having those clear supporting mechanisms about things to do with judicial processes being fair, being independent. The government, systems being transparent. Talk of the police, the middle people that happen to be within the process, whether they within that process, wherever there's a dispute over assets or any property. Now, let's talk about property rights in terms of fueling free will, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. Property rights are more than just legal frameworks. So I know from the beginning we've talked a lot about property rights being, that legal entitlement that allows you to do whatever you want within your property rights. But the important thing, or rather the important aspect, advantage that we draw from that legal entitlement associated um, with property rights is because they empower individuals. When people have clear ownership of their property, they have the freedom to make choices about how to use that property. I think this is one point that I have attempted to make very clear throughout this lesson, is because when I own a piece of property, be it intellectual, be it physical or otherwise, when I own that piece of property, it's mine. Nobody else lays claim to it. Nobody dictates how I can be able to use particular that property, as long as it's within the established legal frameworks. Then I have the freedom to make choices on how to use that particular piece of property. And this fosters a sense of agency and control over people's lives. So, the importance of having strong property rights that protect whatever people own in a society is that, it gives that us that agency, that is the ability to commit property to whatever use that I want, maybe that I feel that it's going to be more beneficial to me as a person, beneficial to the whole of the society within which my business or that property is impended within. So I get that bit of control over my life, because if it's a piece of land, today I can be able to decide that I'm railing sheep on this piece of land. Tomorrow I might decide, let me plant some bamboo for commercial purposes. Tomorrow I might decide, let me divide it among my children, and so forth. So that is the control. That is the beauty of having property rights. That the control that strong property rights give us as a people. Number two, property rights also act as a catalyst for entrepreneurship, and I think this is a very important aspect of trying to accomplish economic growth, as we had talked about. And this is because knowing, when an entrepreneur or a business person knows that their ideas and creations are protected, it allows these are individuals are allowed to take risks and venture into new business opportunity. Like you might know. Entrepreneurship is all about taking risks. It's about committing your labor. It's about committing your time. And most importantly, it's about committing your capital. In instances where you might have to go to the bank, friends, circle, or so on to obtain some capital. To be able to bring an idea that you have, a business idea, into fruition. So when I am guaranteed that, after investing my capital, labor, and all that, when I am guaranteed that the benefits that I get from that particular piece of business, nobody is going to take my profits away. Nobody is going to take any other, the goodwill that I have away from me. Nobody is going to take the copyrights that I have from me, take my book and so on and so on. Then, when I'm guaranteed of all that, because strong property rights exists, then as an entrepreneur, as a person, as an individual, I go out there and I commit my resources and I take risks, to venture into new business opportunities and so on. And when this happens, it drives innovation and creativity as people strive to develop new products, services, and technologies. So, because I know that whatever benefit I'm going to get, let's say, for example, it's in the form of profits, because I know I'm going to retain them and they belong to me and nobody has the right to take them from me. I am protected. By the law, then what happens is that I'm more likely to take more risks to create new solutions. And because in a free market, a lot of us are trying to do that. A lot of us are investing our time and resources uh, in doing that. What happens is that now I will go further and try to look for more innovative and more creative ways for me to be able to bring better solutions into the market, better solutions for me to be able to get ahead of the competition that is there in the market. Because as an entrepreneur, I understand that the more superior um, my product or service is, the more attraction it's likely to get in the market, and the more benefits in terms of profitability and sales I'm going to get. So having the guarantee that I own whatever I create, and I am entitled to enjoy the benefits that come with it, it tends to push entrepreneurs into becoming more creative and more innovative in developing new products, technologies, and services, which in the long run benefit individuals and create value and solutions in a market, in a social setting, to improve the lives of people. So imagine someone with, for example, a revolutionary invention. They are, let's say, they are creating a new software that is new in the market. So property rights ensures them that they benefit from that creation, which encourages them to bring their ideas to life. So, in instances where I'm not guaranteed, where I know that I might spend years creating a product. And then I might lose it to someone else. In settings where the property protection rights are weak or non-existent, then I'm unlikely to invest my time and resources in such a venture. And that is what creates, or rather kills, entrepreneurial spirit. That is what kills free will. That is what prevents us from innovating new products. And when we have all that kind of strong property rights in a social or an economic kind of setting, then in the long run, when I'm committing my resources, selling a product or a service, and then generating profits, and everyone else who is able to do that in the market is doing that, it of course encourages that exchange of goods and services, value for money, and so on. And that is what fuels innovation and progress towards um, economic growth and prosperity. So when you look at some of the markets that are doing well across the globe, is because they are allow that latitude for people to be able to commit their resources and benefit from whatever products that they create, and it's what motivates, or rather creates, room for economic growth and prosperity, as that creation process and exchange is going um, is going on. So yeah, so as we have seen, having strong property rights will fuel what you're calling free will. That is a person to be in control of their life, how to use their property, what kind of resources to commit and where. But two, it's all about entrepreneurship, because I'm going to benefit from committing my resources to a particular venture. Then I'm more likely to focus on that particular role. And so by doing that, it drives innovation and creativity, because I understand the more superior my creation, my product or service is, the more profitable it is. Right. So let's look at a recap of what we've already discussed in terms of the basics of property rights and why they are indeed important in our society. And we have looked at property rights as the bedrock of a fair and prosperous society. And this is because they establish clear ownership rules and tend to incentivize people to invest in their property. And in the long run, we have also seen that they facilitate trade and commerce. And so, by upholding strong property rights, we create a stable environment where everyone can thrive, everyone can be able to create value, where everyone can be able to sell, generate profitability from the assets, be it intellectual, be it physical, be it intangible, and so on. So that is the importance of having a strong property rights in our society. And we have also mentioned that independent and well laid out judicial processes, where governments and acts of transparency, corruption, and so on don't come into play, then having such a system is good in terms of the enforcement of contracts that people have, and in terms of allowing individuals to lay claim to their property, to use in whichever way they want, as long as it's within the law. And in the long run, it is we see that property rights are critical, or rather, strong property rights are critical uh, for fueling free will, entrepreneurship, innovation and creativity, and in the long run, in facilitating economic growth and prosperity. So, thank you so much for joining me for this lesson.